It is the first ever visit, a bilateral visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Brunei, and as a special gesture, he was also received by the Crown Prince there. There you can see a guard of honor for the Prime Minister. Let's listen in. Various dignitaries there. Tell us about the program. Right, Ghazali, if you could tell us about the Prime Minister's program in Brunei, the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to the country.
Yeah, so the Prime Minister will be arriving at a community welcome at a hotel. After the airport, he will be moving to a hotel where he will be receiving arrival and community welcome there. And after that, the Prime Minister in the evening at around 5:20 India Standard Time or Indian time, the Prime Minister will be inaugurating the Chancery of the High Commission of India. So there is an inauguration ceremony at the High Commission of India in Brunei. And later at around 5:45 p.m. Indian time, he will visit to a Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque, a notable mosque there, historic mosque in Brunei's capital. And these are the two programs which are scheduled today after his arrival at the hotel. And why this entire visit is very significant, because we need to understand the India-Brunei relations. The two countries established its relations in 1984. However, the Indian diaspora established roots in Brunei as early as in 1930s, and there are around 14,500 Indians who are living in Brunei. Over half are semi and unskilled workers in the oil and gas industry, construction and retail businesses. Notably, many doctors in Brunei are also from India. Indians are also teachers, engineers and IT professionals, and it is expected that the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, will also be having a dialogue or a kind of an address to the Indian community there, the diaspora there. Now, coming to the point that why does Brunei matter to India? Because Brunei happens to be an important partner in India's Act East policy. And if you see in Modi's 3.0, the third term of the NDA government, the Indian government has been trying to has carried out its outreach program to most of its neighbor, not just in the immediate neighborhood or those countries which share borders with India, but at least in the entire Southeast Asia region. India has been trying to reach out to other leaders. The primary reason being is to counter the influence of China in the region. Also, the maritime security happens to be the key focus area of Indian government in the coming years due to Chinese growing influence in the region, as well as Chinese, you know that how China has been giving debt to other countries, and in the mode of recovery, it also establishes close relations, like what China is doing with Bangladesh, what it has done with Sri Lanka and Maldives. And to counter that entire influence, India has also kind of ramped up its efforts when it comes to reaching out to other countries. So we saw Malaysian Prime Minister visiting India. India's Foreign Secretary has been visiting countries like Bhutan and Nepal on one side of India's border. We saw a regime change in Bangladesh, but India is also trying to reach out to the new regime in Bangladesh. So continuing with that effort, India's Prime Minister has now embarked on a 2-3-day journey,
right.
One to Brunei and the next
That's
to Singapore.
right. In fact, Ghazali is about to ask you that this, big look east policy push with the Prime Minister's 3-day visit. Right now, he's just arrived in Brunei. You're telling us about the program, and then he will go on to Singapore as well.
Yes, after that, this trip from Brunei, Indian Prime Minister will head towards Singapore. Now, that would be another key visit of the Prime Minister after 6 years, because Singapore also happens to be a very close partner of India when it comes to geopolitical relations or diplomatic relations between India and Singapore. Singapore was the source of largest FDI, the largest source of FDI for India. And we know the kind of defense cooperation, trade ties with Singapore. India enjoys a very good relations with Singapore when it comes to trade ties, investment, food and agri-technology, defense sector. These are certain sectors where India and Singapore have very close ties, and to improve those ties from a strategic comprehensive partnership, it is only going to elevate that kind of relationship when the Prime Minister visits to Singapore. This will be his visit after 6 years. The first time he visited was in his first term, and then later in his second term, Prime Minister visited Singapore, and his third term, this is going to be like after 6 years from the second term. This is in his first trip to Singapore in third term, when the Prime Minister will be meeting the head of the state there in Singapore. On his invitation, he will be going to Singapore, and this also comes a week after a ministerial 3+3 meeting was held between India and Singapore last week, when India's External Affairs Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, and Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, Trade Minister Mr. Piyush Goyal, Railways Minister Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav, these 4 ministers had gone to Singapore for a India-Singapore ministerial dialogue, where a lot of discussions happened on multiple areas, and perhaps to follow that up and to have a concrete kind of MOUs and to sign MOUs between India and Singapore. Perhaps in this visit we will see some concrete results coming out of Prime Minister's visit.